You may have heard that there's a massive talent shortage in the tech industry. But what does this tech talent shortage mean to our digital transformations and our careers? That's what I want to talk about here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world reach their third stage of digital transformation success. And as I mentioned at the top of the video, there is a tech talent shortage in the industry right now. In other words, there's not enough employees and skilled technologists to help the demand and to realize the demand of digital transformations and ERP initiatives in the industry. This has pretty significant repercussions for digital transformations and for people in the tech industry that are trying to further their careers. So that's why I want to talk about here today is what is this tech talent shortage and what does it mean to us and what can we do to navigate the challenges of that shortage? Now, for more information and best practices about the technology and the digital transformation industry, I encourage you to read our ebook called Lessons from 1000 Digital Transformations. This book provides a number of lessons learned and tips based on having helped over 1,000 organizations through their implementations in recent years. You can read that book for free by scanning the QR code in front of you or by going to the links below. So first, it helps to understand what is the tech talent shortage and what's causing it. Well, first of all, as I mentioned, a tech talent shortage is exactly how it sounds. It means we don't have enough talent and enough people that know a certain type of technology or technology in general to support the demand for the number of implementations and digital transformations happening throughout the world. But what's causing this? This is something that's relatively new and it seems to be becoming a bigger deal as time goes on. Well, there's three primary influencers and contributing factors that's causing this tech talent shortage. First of all, you have the software vendors in the ERP industry and other industries as well that are largely pushing their customers from on-premise solutions on the legacy side of things to the newer cloud solutions. So you have a lot of forced migrations happening within the next few years, which is a pretty tight window of conversions for a lot of different organizations. Just to give you one example of a data point from one software vendor, research shows that SAP has only converted about 1/3 of their customer base onto their S/4HANA platform, which is their cloud platform that they're moving all their legacy customers onto. That means that you still have 2/3 of legacy SAP customers that have yet to make that transition to the cloud, and they have until 2027 to do that before support for the legacy products are cut off. So you can see that that's a pretty narrow window that's creating an artificial demand or a spike in demand from technologists throughout the world. The second thing that's causing this dynamic of shortages in the tech space is the fact that technology is changing so quickly, it's hard for technologists and the labor force in general to keep up with the newest, latest and greatest technologies. So for example, if you think back 20 to 30 years, for those of you that remember the old mainframe systems, the green screens where you'd have to type in text and there was no graphical user interface, had a very customized or very specific programming language called RPG that you had to operate from. That was a very high demand skill set maybe 30 years ago. You had a lot of people that knew how to do RPG programming. Well, guess what? RPG is not a thing anymore. It's not very common. It's only used by a small subset of organizations that are still stuck on old systems. And if you haven't kept up with technological changes and gotten certified and trained in different newer technologies, you can see how not all the labor force is going to be able to keep up with those changes. And of course, now when you talk about artificial intelligence and cloud computing and all these other emerging technologies, it's constantly changing so quickly that it's hard for the labor force to keep up with the newest, latest, and greatest skills. Now, the third thing that's contributing to this tech talent shortage is just general unemployment being fairly low in many parts of the world, especially when you look at the Americas, Western Europe, and some of the other developed countries where we rely on getting a lot of our tech talent. You can see that with low unemployment means there's just not enough people to support the existing demand for labor, let alone this artificial spike in demand that I talked about a moment ago. So these are the three things that are contributing to the tech talent shortage. So let's shift gears next and talk about what this means to you and what you could do to navigate this challenge. The first thing you can do if you're an organization that's going through an ERP implementation or a technology initiative is to build plenty of buffer in your project plan. A lot of times what happens is software vendors will give you a proposal of how long they think it'll take based on perfect world scenarios, which might include the assumption that you have plenty of talent and plenty of resources to support your project. Well, if we know that shortages are going to be happening within the tech space and we know that we might have trouble getting the right resources at the right time, that might mean that we need to take a proposed project plan with a grain of salt and add a buffer. So in other words, if a proposal shows that technology could be deployed in 18 months, maybe we intentionally increase that to 24 months, knowing that we might have some labor shortage or tech talent issues throughout our project. So that's one thing we can do, is build a buffer within our plan to account for the fact that it's likely we're going to run into some sort of material resource shortage along the way during our implementation. Another thing we can do to navigate this challenge is to not be so dependent on outside third-party resources to support our digital transformations. One way to do that is to upskill our internal team, those people that are presumably going to be with the organization longer term beyond what a consultant or a technologist might be. And this is a great way for you to build the internal competencies, not only so you have additional resources that can support the project, but also so that you have people that can support the technology longer term, long after the consultants have left. The other unintended benefit of leveraging internal resources for these sorts of projects is that now you have more ownership of the project, and you don't have that sort of learned helplessness that a lot of organizations have when they just bring in an army of consultants to come take over the project for them. By building your own team and upskilling your own team to where maybe they're not as good or don't have as much depth or experience as an outside consultant, but they can still help further the project, what we have now is a situation where we're not so dependent and as affected by any sort of third-party shortage of technology resources. In essence, what we're doing is we're creating another pool of resources, creating our own pool of tech resources by training and upskilling them to the best of our ability. A third thing you can do to navigate this challenge, which is much like the first one but slightly different, is to develop your own timeline, your own cadence, your own tempo that makes the most sense for your organization. So based on the fact that you may or may not have internal resources that are skilled technologists, or based on the fact that you may or may not have access to some of the best and brightest outside technologists, you may want to build a plan that reflects that reality. In other words, you may not necessarily want to completely ignore a proposal you get from a software vendor, but you might create your own timeline and plan based on the realities of what skill sets you do and don't have. And this is something you should be doing anyway, even without tech talent shortages. You should be controlling the tempo of your project and taking ownership of the project, and this is just another way to do that. Now, so far, most of what I've talked about is what you can do to navigate the shortages in the tech industry if you're an organization going through a digital transformation. But what if you're a consultant, or you're a CIO, or someone that's trying to further your career and develop the skills necessary to succeed? Well, the good news is there's lots of opportunities now. Because we know there's so much demand for a limited pool of resources, that just means there's more opportunity for those of you that may want to further your careers or get into the technology consulting industry. So you can look at some of the big consulting firms, smaller consulting firms, mid-sized consulting firms like Third Stage Consulting, where I work. You can look at all these different options you have out there and find ways to get training and to get experience with these organizations, because chances are pretty high you're going to see a lot of vacancies and a lot of demand for job postings and job roles that are trying to be filled by these organizations. So the good news is it creates a lot of opportunity for people that are trying to further their careers within the technology consulting space. So I hope this has given you some guidance on how to navigate the realities of the tech talent shortage. For more information and lessons and best practices, I encourage you to read our free ebook called Lessons from 1,000 Digital Transformations. It's a great read, it's a simple read, it's a way to unpack 20 different lessons from over 1,000 different organizations that have recently gone through implementations. So I encourage you to read that book by scanning the QR code below, or you can go to the description field below for additional links. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day. That's one I want to talk about here today. Actually, let me do that again. I didn't like that. There's something I was going to say. I just remembered what I was really going to say. The second thing that's causing this is the massive tech shortage. Nope. In other words, you might want to lessons from over 1,000 different organizations that, damn it, now I forgot what I was going to say. I know where to start.